The edible rice species are members of the bot clade within the grass family, the pos. The rice subfamily, Rhizoid, is sister to the bamboos, Bambusoid, and the cereal subfamily Pood. The rice genus Rhizu is one of 11 in the Rhizae. It is sister to the Phyllorachidae. The edible rice species O. sativa and O. glabrimu are among some 300 species or subspecies in the genus 22. Pos other grasses. Packmud clade Inc. The C4 grasses, maize, sorghum. Bot clade Rhizoid streptogyne. Earharty. Phyllorachidae. Rhizae wild rices Inc. Zizania. Rhizu other rice species and subspecies. O. sativa Asian rice. O. glabrimu African rice. Bambusoid bamboos. Pood grasses and cereals Inc. Wheat, barley. Rhiza sativa rice was first domesticated in China 9,000 years ago 23 by people of Neolithic cultures in the upper and lower Yangtze, associated with HMONG mean speakers and pre-Austronesians, respectively 24, 25, 26, 27. The functional allele for non-shattering, the critical indicator of domestication in grains, as well as 5 other single nucleotide polymorphisms, is identical in both Indica and Japonica. This implies a single domestication event for O. sativa 28. Both Indica and Japonica forms of Asian rice sprang from a single domestication event in China from the wild rice Rhiza rufipagan 29-28. Despite this evidence, it appears that Indica rice arose when Japonica arrived in India about 4,500 years ago and hybridized with another rice, whether an undomesticated Proto-Indica or wild O. Nivera 30. Rice was introduced early into Sino-Tibetan cultures in northern China by around 6,000 to 5,600 years ago 31-32-25, and to the Korean peninsula and Japan by around 5,500 to 3,200 years ago 33-34. It was also carried into Taiwan by the Dapankang culture by 5,500 to 4,000 years ago, before spreading southwards via the Austronesian migrations to islands Southeast Asia, Madagascar, and Guam, but did not survive the voyage to the rest of the Pacific 24-35-36. It reached Austroasiatic and Kra-Dai speakers in mainland Southeast Asia and southern China by 5,000 years ago 24-37. Rice spread around the rest of the world through cultivation, migration and trade, eventually to the Americas as part of the Columbian Exchange after 1492-38. The now less common Rhiza glabrimu African rice was independently domesticated in Africa around 3,000 years ago 38 and introduced to the Americas by the Spanish 39. In British North America by the time of the start of the American War of Independence, rice had become the fourth most valuable export commodity behind only tobacco, wheat, and fish. In 2023, world production of rice was 800 million tons, led by China and India with a combined 52% of the total 41. This placed rice third in the list of crops by production, after sugarcane and maize 41. Other major producers were Bangladesh, Indonesia and Vietnam 41. 90% of world production is from Asia. The average world yield for rice was 4.7 metric tons per hectare, 2.1 short tons per acre in 2022-45. Yuan Longping of China's National Hybrid Rice Research and Development Center set a world record for rice yield in 1999 at 17.1 metric tons per hectare, 7.6 short tons per acre, on a demonstration plot. This employed specially developed hybrid rice and the system of rice intensification (SRI), an innovation in rice farming. Rice is a major food staple in Asia, Latin America, and some parts of Africa 47, feeding over half the world's population 42. However, a substantial part of the crop can be lost post-harvest through inefficient transportation, storage, and milling. A quarter of the crop in Nigeria is lost after harvest. Storage losses include damage by mold fungi if the rice is not dried sufficiently. In China, losses in modern metal silos were just 0.2% compared to 7.13% when rice was stored by rural households. 48. The dry grain is milled to remove the outer layers, namely the husk and bran. These can be removed in a single step, in 2 steps, or as in commercial milling in a multi-step process of cleaning, dehusking, separation, polishing, grading, and weighing. 49. Brown rice only has the inedible husk removed. 50. Further milling removes bran and the germ to create successively whiter products. 50. Parboiled rice is subjected to a steaming process before it is milled. This makes the grain harder and moves some of the grain's vitamins and minerals into the white part of the rice, so these are retained after milling. World trade figures are much smaller than those for production, as less than 8% of rice produced is traded internationally. China, an exporter of rice in the early 2000s, had become the world's largest importer of rice by 2013. 51. Developing countries are the main players in the world rice trade. By 2012, India was the largest exporter of rice, with Thailand and Vietnam the other largest exporters. As of 2016, the countries that consumed the most rice were China 29% of total, India and Indonesia 53%. By 2020, Bangladesh had taken third place from Indonesia. On an annual average from 2020 to 2023, China consumed 154 million tons of rice, India consumed 109 million tons, and Bangladesh and Indonesia consumed about 36 million tons each. Across the world, rice consumption per capita fell in the 21st century as people in Asia and elsewhere ate less grain and more meat. An exception is sub-Saharan Africa, where both per capita consumption of rice and population are increasing.